Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's live webinar. This is our technology update, where we're giving you an update about what was happening at NAB. But we also have a very special addition to today's program, where we're going to be talking to you about innovations in live sports production with private 5G and AI with a special guest from Verizon Business. My name is Marcus Scholler. I'm the VP of Marketing at Haivision. Just a couple of logistics. We will be inviting people to submit questions using the Q&A tool. We have somebody in the background who will answer your questions. Um, and uh, and with that, we're going to just jump right in and let me introduce today's speakers. So on the Haivision side, we have Mark Horchler, our Director of Product Marketing at Haivision, Ghislain Colette, VP of Product Management at Haivision, and Nikos Kyriopoulos, our VP of Technology Strategy, also at Haivision. And joining us today from Verizon Business, very special guest, and we thank you very much for being here, Scott Connolly, the Head of Media Technology. So we'll hear more from everybody momentarily. Let's just get into the agenda. I'm going to start with a quick overview of what happened in Vegas at NAB 2025, so I'll give you a recap of that. Then I'll pass it over to Mark Horchler and Ghislain Colette, who will give you an update on what's new with Haivision technology. And then finally, Nikos and Scott will go into a conversation about the Verizon Business and Haivision NAB demo, this award-winning demo that happened at the show. So let's start with NAB. Of course, NAB is always a big show for us. We had the Haivision team present that were there to meet people, talk to everybody about our new technology and our solutions, our partners, our customers. It was an amazing opportunity for us to get together and have some very, very exciting conversations about the projects that you guys are working on. So if you were there, thank you. I assume many of you were not there, which is why you're here today. So hopefully we can give you a bit more of a taste of what was going on. To begin with, I think it's important for everybody to understand that we have been talking about our broadcast product ecosystem for live video contribution for a while now. It's a major focus for us at the shows. What it's all about is how the Haivision technology will allow you to take content from source to production, whether that's on-prem, in the cloud, or hybrid, through contribution, distribution, and cloud management. So just what that means in terms of the key products. On the contribution side, we have, of course, the Makito X4 video encoder, the Haivision Pro 460, and the other transmitters like the Haivision Air 320, and the Mojo Pro mobile camera app. So all of those were prominently featured. Those were being used in workflows typically to send content to our distribution to on-premise and cloud production products. So that, of course, would include the Makito X4 decoder, as well as the StreamHub receiver decoder, which is used to receive streams from the transmitters, SRT gateway, which many of you are familiar with for stream replication and routing of SRT streams. And last but not least, in terms of managing your devices and workflow, we were showcasing the Haivision Hub 360 Cloud Master Control solution. So this was a big part of what was going on at the show, talking about the ecosystem in general. But of course, there's much more going on at the show. We're not just talking about workflows and whatnot. We're also introducing new things. And at NAB, what was new was a big deal for us. And to talk to you more about what's new, I'd like to introduce Mark Horchler. So Mark, all yours.
So thank you, Marcus. So I'm joined here with Gisela Colette, our VP of Product Management. We're going to talk you through some of the new product announcements and new product updates that we featured at NAB. For one, we introduced a brand new mobile transmitter, the Falcon X2. So very exciting. We'll get to that in a second. We also showed an update to our Mojo Pro live contribution app software, and we'll cover that in a second as well. And a whole bunch of features that we added to the Makito X4, both the encoder and the decoder. So those of you who are familiar with the Makito X4, you know that once in a while we will update the firmware of your Makito X4 so that you continually benefit from new features. So we did that on the Makito X4 side. We'll talk about that as well. We also showed at NAB a brand new SRT gateway user interface. It's coming out soon, so we'll cover that. And a new option for StreamHubs. This is the StreamHub Go. It's a small form factor StreamHub, and we'll get to the details on that in a sec. And finally, we also had the latest version of Hub 360, which is our cloud-based master control solution. So the Falcon X2, this is a brand new range of 5G transmitters for both public and private networks that we showed at NAB for the first time. And so I was wondering, Gislain, if you could just run us through some of the really exciting key features of this product.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. Yeah. So as Mark said, we launched the Falcon X2, new generation of transmitter at NAB. It's a super compact transmitter that is camera mount, but it can also be put into a backpack. So it's really leveraging on the success we've had, with the Pro and the Air. But this time we're actually we're supporting two modems with MIMO technology. So for those of you perhaps not familiar with MIMO, so it's multi-in, multi-out capable modem. So essentially what it brings is additional throughput. So you could transmit from the camera or from the source higher quality video. Because it can talk to two antennas, each modem can talk to two antennas at the same time. It's actually does a better job with the end-offs when you switch between cells. So if you're in motion, if you're in a crowded space, it provides lower latency, and it provides actually, again, higher throughput and less kind of discontinuity. So the Falcon also has an internal battery. So that's really convenient. It can do UHD 4K and up to 10-bit 422. It's got ultra low latency support, so we can do 80 millisecond from input to output of the receiver. And it's a camera mount or backpack mount. So it's got a lot of the functionalities that we've supporting, like data bridge and all the other technologies that we have with the other generations of transmitters, but packed into the latest, cellular technology in a super compact form factor.
And tell us a bit about the user interface. So it's the same user interface that we're familiar with our other Pro and Keto encoders, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, same. It's adjusted, but it's kind of part of the same family of user interface where there's consistency that is being rolled out through the entire ecosystem within Haivision. And so that same framework is being adopted from the get-go into the Falcon. So you get like a great dashboard that gives you, visibility into the performance of the cellular connectivity. And you can also record, you can stream, you can do a file transfer as well. So the dashboard and all the statistics provides you great visibility into the health of what's going on within your live transmission.
Yeah, and I just remind everyone this is a web browser-based user interface, so you can access your Falcon X2 from any web browser. Very practical. Mojo Pro is our live contribution app, which you can actually download for free. There's an Android and a Mac version. The iOS version, and the iOS version actually is we showed the latest version at NAB. And can you talk us through some of those key features, Gisela?
Yeah, so based on the success we've had last summer, where hundreds and hundreds of Mojo Android apps were used to stream content, we actually ported the functionalities into the iOS application. So namely the remote control. So if through an RCP, an external RCP, you can actually remotely control the ISO, the white balance, the zoom. Pretty much anything that a professional camera would offer. And if you're familiar with Mojo, we expose really a lot of knobs that are actually available on the phone to really make the picture professional. So if you want to do remote camera shading, for instance, it's really, really convenient. So that's really one of the key differentiator compared to other apps that exist on the market. The low latency streaming, so we reduced it to sub 1 second. We can do again from camera all the way to SDI out or 2110 out on stream mode. Can do less than 800 millisecond. We had the time code also. So if you want to do editing of your file and go to a specific location, time code becomes super handy. And then based on some customer feedback, We added the option to start streaming immediately as soon as you launch the app. And last but not least, the integration of the Move Mic from Shure technology. So instead of having essentially like a receiver, like a Bluetooth receiver that you would carry and then plug that receiver into the phone, we integrated the receiver technology within the app itself. So you only have to wear the Cavalier or the microphone from Shure and pair it with your app, with your mobile device. And so you don't have to carry as many accessories with you during contribution events like that, whether it's for news or sports interviews.
Great. So something else we showed at NAB was basically an end-to-end IP workflow. So you can encode ST2110 video, beam it over with SRT to an ST2110 workflow. Right, Ghislain?
Yep. So we've showed and we're adding 2110 output on the decoder. So as you said, you can have like a full IP environment, coming from, because we have 2110 on the encoder, so you could have like 2110 encoded and then SRT or something else from a streaming point of view, and then decoded back to 2110. So we have that. So what's really convenient is that because it's a software option, you could have an SDI infrastructure today and then evolve, as your environment changes toward an IP without having to replace your hardware. So we support also the PTP as a gen lock. So the output of the decoder is gen lock within the time domain of the location where the decoder is sitting, which is very convenient for synchronization. We also support NMOS. For those of you interested into some of those details, we support ISO4 for the discovery and registration, O5 for the remote control, as well as O9 for the inheriting the system parameters from the network effectively. So we support that parity actually with what we have on the encoder. The encoder supported the exact same functionality. We've added also Dolby decoding support with AC3, EAC3, and the Dolby Atmos. So essentially we're supporting 512 and 714 on the decoding and on the output. So that's a pretty cool functionality that is heavily requested. If you're people doing concerts, for instance, even sports actually uses Dolby during the contribution aspect. Another thing that we've added is actually we've made some updates to the security where we support now FIPS 140-3. It's the most recent FIPS version, so historically we've been supporting -2. And the -3 comes with a number of other security updates as well. We've done that on the decode side. We're also doing it on the encode. And part of the coming actually release of the X4 platform encoder is also we've reduced the encoding latency by a technique that is what we call like slice capture. So you capture your images in slices and you start encoding them and sending them over the network without having to wait for capturing the entire frame. By doing this technique, which is absolutely standard, allowed by both 264 and HEVC, it allows you to actually perform a encoding latency of less than 5 milliseconds. From SDI in to network, we can now do it in less than 5 milliseconds. And what another cool thing we're adding also is the WIP streaming format support for streaming over WebRTC for reaching browsers and mobile applications, anything that supports effectively WebRTC. So if you're perhaps more or less familiar with WebRTC, so it's really a streaming protocol that is used for low latency and being able to use browser technologies for that. So we don't have to install something else, a different application. or something like that. And you can do it in low latency. So WIP is the ingest protocol for WebRTC. So by adding WIP into the X4 platform encoder, so you can send a WIP, which is a WebRTC ingest, and then you hit a WebRTC streaming server. There's a number of those that exist in the market. Some of them are free, some of them are like paid enterprise grade. But then you can actually like really through those external streaming servers scale up and send content to several receivers at the same time. And by achieving low latency, and I'm talking about from sources all the way to browser within just a few hundred milliseconds. So this is something we're adding because people have been requesting, and the ability to support not only I would say like standard multimedia players and receivers, but also like natively browser capabilities for decoding as well.
Right. This and something else that we showed at NAB and that will be coming out soon is the new UI for the our SRT gateway, which is widely used. So it makes it easier for people who are already familiar with the Makito X4 or mobile transmitters to use SRT gateway. So it's a new UI, and also the UI has been designed so you can also use it on mobile devices on a smartphone or a tablet. So that's coming up soon. So and then something else that we also introduced at NAB is a brand new StreamHub appliance, the StreamHub Go. So this is really a small form factor appliance for live contribution, for receiving live contribution streams with our transmitters. And I would be interested in finding out, though, Gisela, from you, what are some of the things that makes this different than our server option?
Well, so it runs the exact same StreamHub software than we have on the other servers or the virtual image or even the cloud instances. But there's demand to have something a little bit more compact that can be more portable, something that could also be put into like a small vehicle, a small truck for production. So if you not necessarily have like the need to decode like 8 or 16 or perhaps even more feeds, and you have just like a few, and you want the convenience of having something that is really portable, we introduced this the StreamHub Go that again like performs or supports all the functionalities of the regular StreamHub, but with a little less capacity from a number of SDI output. So it's limited to one SDI. But it can do up to 4, whether it's NDI, whether it's like stream. There's no 2110, but it can do transcoding, and it's got the video return intercom recording, so it can also support ultra low latency and 422 10-bit as well, and HDR. So it's the same feature set again as the any other StreamHub that we have on the in the portfolio, but more, I would say, less capacity from a number of output streams and decoded output, just for more like simple setups and deployments.
So ideal for like a portable setup or a small vehicle, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Also, we introduced, the latest version of Hub 360 at NAB, and there's a whole bunch of features we introduced there. Do you want to talk us through some of the key ones there, Gisela?
Yeah, so we've got tremendous positive feedback since we launched Hub 360 about a year ago. The adoption is really like quasi-exponential. So we've added the ability to display the GPS coordinate if the option is turned on the transmitters and application. You can actually send that. So it helps with the position, like as a manager, as an operator of a fleet of transmitters. It helps you locate where units are. Potentially, unit could be stolen too. I've seen that. So like it helps you locate them to ease the recovery. We added also the ability to have more control on the Makito support. So the Hub 360. Not only manages a fleet of transmitters, but also can manage a fleet of Makitos as well, both encoders and decoders. So we've added and not just the X4, but also like the X platform previous generation. So we can now granularly configure streams and encoded parameters. We're adding also single sign-on for any essentially identity providers that are supporting SAML 2.0, which is pretty the de facto standard now for identity providers. So we support that. The feedback that we got also very quickly was Hub 360 is great for Haivision ecosystem to configure sources and destination and do routing and management. But what if the SRT streams is actually coming from a third party, or if the destination is a third party? So we're not managing the third party, but you can actually kind of emulate or create a virtual third party receiver or transmitter in there, and then keep using the same user interface for route creation by a simple drag and drop between, let's say, a Haivision product and a third party, and vice versa. We've added also the SRT gateway support. Again, thanks to the new release that we've launched recently. You have the gateway support where you can actually do upgrade. You can also do remote connectivity to it, whether it's a server, whether it's a VM or cloud, so it doesn't really matter. And we've added also a workflow view, and I'm going to get into a little bit more details here. So because the workflows could become quite complex, where you can have like a source, being received and then, transcoded and then potentially recorded, and then let's say converted into an SRT or into RTMP or decoded and sent over 2110. Like, a visual representation of that workflow become really handy as soon as you have something a little bit more complex. And this is what this workflow view gives you, is that it represents the workflow that you've built in a graphical way where you can actually like establish it, but also like monitor it. So again, within the spirit of making Hub 360 the tool for managing broadcast workflow within Haivision ecosystem, that's really a must. And that very quickly we get that feedback, because as soon as you have something a little bit more, demanding than something simple as one in, one out type of thing, like you need a visual representation.
Great. So thanks for that update, Gislain. So again, I want to just apologize because we lost Marcus in the beginning. But just so you know, he was actually calling in from joining us from the InfoComm event in Orlando, Florida. If you happen to be there this week, come by our stand, and Marcus will be more than happy to show you all these products we just talked about in person. So, and another thing before we move to the next part with our friends at Verizon Business is, just to remind you that there's many different ways that whether you're looking for CapEx or OpEx or a mix of both, you can purchase all of our products. We also have a number of cloud subscriptions available for Hub 360, for Stream Hub, SRT Gateway. Pay as you go. We have a number of pay as you go options available too, including Stream Hub and SRT Gateway. We also can work with you for event-based rental. If you have a big event coming up and you need some extra broadcast equipment, we can help work with you on that. And we have long-term rental programs too. So we're very flexible. We can work with you at whatever works best for your needs. All right. So next, this is the exciting bit. We're going to talk about. We're joined here with by Scott and Nikos, who are going to talk to us through what we did with Verizon. This is a really interesting private 5G demonstration that we had at NAB. And actually, we won the best of show at NAB for this demo. And this is using a Verizon Business private network with a enterprise AI module. Nikos and Scott, you want to talk us through this, how this demo was put together, how it worked?
Thank you, Mark. Scott, welcome. Thanks for making the time and allowing for everybody who might have missed the NAB show to experience what we did over there. Usually they say that what happens in in Vegas stays in Vegas. Maybe you want to tell us at least what happened during the daytime.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me to join you today. So I work in the innovation labs inside Verizon, and I work in pre-commercial incubation of new offerings. So we invited Haivision to join us at the Verizon booth at NAB this year, so we could showcase an offering that we've been putting together and really a proof of concept. That we are exploring what use cases we can deploy. So I was in all this work was done in partnership with both Haivision, Ericsson, and in partnership with NVIDIA. We announced that larger partnership late last year.
And how was that received, both from the audience and the industry overall? Just briefly, Scott.
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, we really enjoyed the response from the industry, and we actually received the TV Tech Best of Show Award, which is very, very exciting and rewarding for all the hard work that we had put into this project.
Awesome, indeed. It's very nice to have the recognition of the industry as well as the excitement from the visitors on the floor. So we all experience that, and that's a great validation. Okay, let me go more into the details here. I think we build enough excitement from our audience. In a typical live production workflow that utilizes, if you go to the previous slide, please, that utilizes cellular as the medium to connect cameras to the contribution and production side, then you'll have a typical. There's something wrong with the slides, but I'm sure we'll get there. So we have a typical form factor of transmitters attached to a camera or put in a backpack or even on a cellular phone or tablet as an application, as the team before mentioned. And those will utilize the cellular capabilities of the field, either in 5G or LTE or something equivalent, to deliver the content in low latency to a stream hub, in this case, the receiving side, which generates a bus on 2110 or NDI or SDI or SRT for the production to deliver the content live. Also, you have a multi-view where you can see the different cameras, and you have return video as well as intercom, right? That's very typical contribution workflow that we see. However, both Verizon Business as well as Haivision, we have been involved in very high-profile sports and other events that have global attention. More recently, the sports games the last summer. So let's go to the next slide, please, where we see a more overwhelming scenario here, but it's becoming more and more typical. Scott, you may want to bring up a few of the needs that are emerging in the industry because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really important for us when we were planning for NAB to really draw on our years of experience in the industry and find a real world challenge that we could actually come up with a solution with our private network, including our enterprise AI offering. So we discussed and talked to Haivision about some of the past projects that they've worked on, and we came up with the thought of dealing with many cameras and what that really means. Sometimes you're in situations, even with all the offerings that Verizon can offer, that we can't broadcast, say, 200 cameras all at once. So we were wondering we wanted to decide how we could solve a challenge like that, and dealing with more cameras, more angles, untethered cameras, all the things that modern day production brings at us.
Indeed, and really the need for immersive and engaging content is quite pressing from the consumer side. That's what's selling. That's what really provides for audience stickiness and interest. Now, those needs, those demands, as they become more and more pressing, they clearly present production challenges that relates to the diverse coverage area. So it's not a very well-defined location that you can cover with fiber or with Ethernet or even OFDM or RF type of solution. And also, you may want to have interviews taking place at different places. You may have audience participation type of content. More importantly, as you have more cameras, you have more bandwidth, which means a need for more spectrum, as Scott mentioned, without jeopardizing video quality, without jeopardizing the low latency that you need for your interviews, for your content delivery. Of course, that translates to more compute. As you see here in the screen, you have lots of content to accommodate and transcode, process, deliver. And finally, you need more eyes. Literally, you need more staff to be able to pay attention to all those content and find something interesting to put into the live production. So those are very realistic challenges that we've seen in the field all those years. And as Scott mentioned, this was the motivation for us to think for an elegant solution based off technology that is available within Haivision, Verizon Business, as well as our partners, Ericsson and NVIDIA. So, Scott, maybe you want to walk us through on the new way of looking at things, and as we presented them at NAB. May you have this next slide, please?
Absolutely. So, Nico shared the kind of typical deployment. And so what we decided to do at NAB is to look at this at scale. So what we ended up doing is we deployed 16 cameras on our private network along with our NVIDIA compute stack, right? We had a full cluster, and the entire system was run on a private network there on the NAB floor. So the system itself actually did not connect to the broader internet. It was entirely air-gapped and running entirely contained within the NAB floor. And as you can imagine, and anybody that's been there knows, the convention floor is a very RF saturated space. So we knew that just broadcasting those cameras and broadcasting them, perfectly within that space was a challenge enough. But of course, we knew that we had the power of Verizon's license bands, which gives us, isolated use of those RF bands in that space. So we had 16 cameras. 8 of them were live on the NAB floor, and 8 of them we'll call virtual cameras. They were actually playing back from a deck and then rebroadcast out over 5G using Haivision Pro 460 encoders. Then we were running a software deployed version of StreamHub. So that is StreamHub running within our cluster, which would take in all the signals, and the signal flow would then go out to to real-time AI inferencing. And this is where really the magic happens, right? So in the previous example and previous use cases that Haivision has done, they've had to have entire production trucks full of story producers looking and watching. If you have 200 cameras, they have to watch 10 cameras at a time and call out individual streams in that space, right? So what we also did here is, because if we were going to be deploying those 200 cameras, we knew that we couldn't broadcast them all at full bit rate, right? So the idea is to reduce the bit rate by default, and then to have the signal come into the AI inferencing model, which is a 12 billion Mistral model, which was a general model. And that model would then send an API signal back to StreamHub when it saw the particular parameters that it was looking for. And then StreamHub would then take the signal and turn the signal up to a broadcast standard.
Very good. Thank you. Let me highlight a few more things here based on what Scott mentioned. So the challenge of being able to acquire content from all kinds of diverse locations is satisfied with the Haivision diverse portfolio of form factors and products with our Falcon or our Pro 460 or our Mojo Pro transmitters. And those can be attached to different connections and different networks. And as Scott mentioned, that we actually at NAB, we deployed both licensed and unlicensed pieces of spectrum in order to accommodate this. And we'll talk more later about the difference between those. But indeed, it's for anybody who has been at NAB, even as a visitor, they know how challenging it is to get an email through or a call through. So having this kind of bandwidth was quite a success. and highlights why someone like Verizon Business is needed for those kinds of challenging environments. Now, that spectrum, even though it can be wide, it's still not wide enough to accommodate the number of streams that you typically see in a global high-profile event. The Stream Hub is hosted on the Verizon Business compute platform, but also dynamically grows based on the needs. And that's an important part, as we mentioned, because this can accommodate the challenges in the field for a production studio. The AI component, we'll talk more right after, but this is really the part that helps massage the spectrum allocation across its camera rather than democratically distribute the bandwidth across all of them and have equally bad video quality or quality of service for all of them. Now, let's go a little bit deeper into the AI component. You touched briefly on that, Scott, but let's look at that more because I think it's quite interesting application here.
Absolutely.
We can have the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, we have actually this one. Sorry. So we saw the diagram, but let's look at the booth itself, right? So Scott, you may just want to navigate us at the Verizon booth, Verizon Business booth.
Absolutely. So I think we've got some highlights here if we press forward one more. So we start with the encoders as we saw in the diagram here. This is our booth here at the NAB floor. We had these encoders spread out throughout the booth with these 16 cameras. So 8 cameras live here. And then on the far right side, we had the playback of the streams that are going to the wall. In the back there, what you see currently highlighted is actually 3 individual bands. And this is really showcasing the power of Verizon. We have CBRS, which is an unlicensed band that was deployed. We have our C-band, which is a mid-band offering from licensed band offering from Verizon, and we have our millimeter wave band. And we'll go a little bit more in depth into the differences in those bands a little bit later, but they all have unique use cases, and the exciting thing about them is that they can be assigned to different parts of the workflow depending on where we are. So to the next highlight there, we have, this is our mobile offering of our private network with enterprise AI. The private network, the system itself is modular. So the private network there sits in the top 1/3 of that rack we see highlighted there. And then the bottom portion is our cluster, right? So we're exploring how we might be able to send that out onto productions, into venues, in a mobile factor. That's currently something that we're trialing and exploring within the space, but we also, have our private network offering available for sale currently. So it was really exciting to get this out on the NAB floor and showcase how this would really work in the wild. The other thing I'll really mention to everybody is that we've hardened and worked through all the equipment to make it film standard. You can't see it in the back there, but there's a standard film stand that's actually, we put junior pins on the back of our radios, which is really important to me coming from the industry, so that we know that when we bring the sound out on to a set or a broadcast production, that the productions will be familiar with the way to deal with the equipment. And then the output here, we go out to the production switcher, and that's where we're playing back the virtual cameras, as I mentioned before, and then the main display, which we'll go into more depth in a moment here, which was the multi-viewer from Stream Hub, which would showcase the AI inferencing, along with, we've got the display of the Stream Hub software right there on the left. We can probably go to the next slide as well.
Before we go, we just need to show that the content that we use here was horse racing, right? Mm-hmm. And everything that, as Scott mentioned, everything that we had at the booth and the workflows that we talked about are all real. We actually had all those things deployed in the booth. Mm-hmm. But Scott, I think we need to come clean here and confess that we didn't bring any horses at the booth, right?
Yeah.
That's the next level, maybe for next year. I think that's the only part that we had to fake for the demo, if you allow.
And I wouldn't even call it faking, right? Like, I think we looked at it and we were like, okay, we really want to showcase a real world scenario, and how can we do that on on a convention floor? And so we were able to temporarily license some horse racing footage from our partners at FanDuel, and we're able to showcase that there on on the day. And so we were able to play that back, and to be honest, playing back from a deck versus playing back from the cameras is the same SDI video signal in, and that was then broadcast through the whole entire workflow. It's very, very important to us that when we do these, that we really showcase doing it live and doing the AI inferencing live and broadcasting, because it really shows off the power of what we're building. So is to go a little bit deeper into the AI inferencing, because this was really an exciting part for us as well. We didn't have 6 months to train, an AI model on what a horse is or what's the difference between a horse. And quite honestly, that's a much, much bigger challenge. That maybe, that to train an AI model on horses maybe takes years, right? And so we wanted to figure out, what would make the most sense of how we could deploy real-time AI inferencing, and something that our end users, our customers, could actually use for their productions. And so what we did is we partnered and licensed an AI model from Monks, and Monks has a system called Airflow, and that was able to deploy a general model. And what a general model is just a model that knows general facts, right? And we said, okay, we went and actually were able to work together with that model to understand what parameters the model could understand. And so we created this prompt here on the bottom, and the prompt was looking for a single jockey wearing navy blue helmet with yellow accents, navy blue silks, yellow sleeves, and yellow design. And then we also said, well, the jockey must be wearing both the helmet and the silks, and match that description, and all those elements must be in the frame at the same time, right? And so that meant that rather than looking for that horse, we could identify the individual factor by things that the AI model understood. And that also means that this general model is something that we can change the prompt, later, right? So if the footage happened to be of, people walking in front of the camera, we could say, well, let us know, give us a positive response when you see, 2 eyes and a mouth or 2 ears, right? A person's face, so that we could, change that prompt to anything that that model could understand. So we can go to the next slide. So when the model saw the parameters that it was looking for, what it did is it gave a red highlight to the individual footage here. And that was meant to tell the technical director that there was the parameters that they were looking for were in that frame. So you can imagine when we had when we looked at those 200 cameras, if we were doing this at full scale, that it would then narrow that down. So the technical director would know, okay, this is a footage that I should start looking at, because I might want to put that on air, right? So at the same time, as we were saying, we could actually, it would send an API call back to StreamHub, and then StreamHub would turn the bit rate up just a bit. And you can see there right on the top, there's a very good hump right in the center there. I always point that out because I think that's a very clear indication of the bit rate where it was turned up from a 6 megabit stream up to about 11 megabits in this for this broadcast.
Yeah, and in this example, you see that camera 2 was highlighted, and the bitrate on camera 2 on the left is the one that had been promoted at this very moment. Mm-hmm. I think it says 10.4, 10.5 megabits. I can't see very well on camera 2.
Yeah, so when this still was taken, it was in the process of being turned up. So as you were seeing that live on the floor, you could see the graph moving live. This inferencing was happening as every time there was a highlight, the signal would get turned up, and then the technical director was there live on the floor, and he could switch directly to that stream, knowing that every time he switched, he confidently knew that most likely the jockey was in the frame that he was looking for, or the parameters that they were looking for were there, and that it was something that could go on air.
And I think we see the same story here. Only you have 2 cameras that have been promoted or activated with the confidence level against the prompt. Just two things here to mention. One, you see the image on the left being blurry just for copyright, for content protection purposes. It's not the representative of the quality that the AI model was fed, right? Another parameter here that I want to make clear is that this model is not actively intercepting or switching the content for the live production, it is an aid to the technical director and the production staff. It helps them focus their interest to a few things. So the model is allowed to be inaccurate in the sense that it's not 100% there, but it certainly helps towards sorting out some of the content for the technical directors to pay more attention, as Scott mentioned.
And I want to hit on that just a little bit more, actually. Sorry. So for us, it was more important, knowing that when using a general model, it was more important that we focused on the occurrence of more false positives than it was to miss something that we were looking for, right? So, and when we look at all these kind of AI inferencing tools, the most important thing that we know within this factor is that, no matter if we're dealing with sports or cinema or unscripted television, what's most important here is the technology driving the creative storytelling, right? And so what we looked into this is that something that could be a tool so that our technical director could reduce the amount of choices they had to make so that he or she could make the best creative choices for the story.
Great. One last point as well is that the camera and the transmitter attached to the camera still maintains a high quality recording for later usage, while trying to push as much as it is allowed based on the interest of the content back into the live production studio. Starting from the model here and the why was the generic model used, the visual language model, against a more typical, well-trained CNN or neural network type of approach.
Yeah. So, as well, of course, when we were preparing for NAB, we knew, we kind of put ourselves in a situation that would be typical of a high pressure production scenario, right? And so we actually put this together in a very short amount of time, which also meant that, we didn't, even if we had wanted to build a model, that we didn't have the time to train. And so we had to, go at it in a smarter way to still achieve the end goal. The other thing I really want to mention with this is that what we're building with the private network with enterprise AI offering is not necessarily built for this specific use case. This is an example of something that you can deploy and run on top of our private networks with our AI offering, which is effectively being built into an ecosystem that can enable and empower use cases like this. So I definitely foresee that we may have shows in the near future and partners that are interested in this exact use case, because in certain scenarios we've definitely found that we would need to change the bit rate in an automated fashion, but also the enterprise AI offering is capable of taking any Kubernetes containerized application or any application that can be deployed on that compute stack, and then scaling and giving it an isolated resources, GPU resources, so that we can deploy it on an a la carte basis based on what the requirements of each production.
Indeed, and I think organizations that have a dedicated interest on certain sports, say from NBA to NFL to FIFA to PGA, where they have a very well-defined ball and a very well-defined court, they can afford to train a model that is very specific and very accurate to those things, and very fast, by the way. And as you mentioned before, the horse racing, it's not clear whether it takes longer to train a horse to race or to train a model to understand the horse racing. So it's a substantial investment, right? Instead, if you are an organization that aggregates all kinds of different sports, it's very hard to dedicate those resources to train a model specifically for each one of them. So having the visual language model being a zero-shot training model, meaning that you don't really train it, just generalize, provides for that flexibility in the expense of the compute element, right? So you have to have the compute, which is something that the Verizon Business on-prem NEC offers. That elasticity really was a very elegant solution for this kind of problems, where you have different and diverse sports that you need to accommodate. Let's look at another thing, which I think is of interest for our audience here, is why the choice of 5G, and what does that bring into this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's two different kind of sections when we talk about 5G. We all know how much nicer it is just to be wireless. Yeah, just for a particular use case within that space. And I think that what's unique about 5G is and I believe we have the only offering that can truly give you almost as much capability as you can get through a wired offering with 5G in some of our bands, right? And what was really exciting about NAB is that we were able to deploy 3 individual bands. And when we focus on deploying private networks and when we are looking to deploy these, on productions in the future, we're really we have a complete separation from our private network and our publicly offered network. And so when we deploy our private networks, we're looking to use the underutilized portions of what bands that we own or that we have access to in the location that we're deploying there. So at NAB, we actually were able to deploy all 3, but in some scenarios, we might just deploy CBRS, which has been a great use case for us. But in other areas, we may deploy our millimeter wave offering, which is goes a little bit of a shorter range, but is much, much higher bandwidth. And so we're exploring how we can really be able to offer the capability to really high upload speeds. And that's something that's unique to the private network as well with 5G, is that we can actually change the upload and download ratio. So primarily, when you access publicly offered 5G, you'll find that it is primarily download speed, and then it's a smaller portion that is upload. We can change that ratio, and we actually did that on the NAB floor with our millimeter wave offering that we were showcasing that day. We actually had 900 megabits per second in upload. So we were able really to show the speed of that, and we're exploring how we can even get that upload side much higher, so we can look in the future at video feeds that are much less compressed.
Indeed, and so I think the message we need to get through is that we didn't just use different bands, different slices of spectrum just to get a thicker pipeline. There are specific feeds that need to go through specific piece of spectrum, depending on their location, depending on their expectation. For example, in terms of bandwidth, in terms of latency, as well as in terms of interference and the whole site, the geographic elements of the site, right? Whether you are inside or outside, you have as a production studio, you have a choice of different slices of spectrum that you can utilize. And someone like Verizon Business is able to bring that kind of diversity of offerings instead of sticking to, let's say, a CBRS unlicensed spectrum with specific advantages and disadvantages for the production, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the one thing I'll just say, the struggle sometimes with CBRS is that it is when you're using that unlicensed band, you are given a capability to use it, and it's a first come first served basis, right? So if you were going to be planning for an event and you're showcasing or you're only planning to use CBRS, you may find yourself in a situation where you don't get the amount of bandwidth that you were hoping to capture. But with the license bands, it's particularly what Verizon can offer is we can give you the exclusive use of the bandwidth that we have available for that location.
And it also has to do with the interference pattern as well, right? So you need to allow, even though you may have a nice piece of spectrum allocated, you need to allow for the interference that comes at the border side. Okay, we have a couple of more minutes, hopefully here, just to discuss a little bit what's next. And you touched a little bit upon that with the AI component, that it doesn't have to be the general model. It can be even some sort of agentic type of approach where you have different models, do all kinds of different things, and you decide which one makes sense. And as you mentioned earlier, with StringHub, it's a matter of providing the right API calls to dictate what you want from it to produce on the spectrum allocation side. How has this been perceived overall, Scott, and where do you see things going from here?
So for us, the exciting part of my job is we get to explore. We get to incubate new offerings and see, and really call on our partners and our customers to find real world challenges just like this. So this was just an exciting opportunity to showcase how we can do that. And that's kind of what we're going to be from the innovation lab. That's what we're going to be doing here, in the next year or so. We're going to be taking, and trialing the private network, mobile private network solution in specific trials, and along with our enterprise AI offering. And the enterprise AI offering, I can go, probably can't go entirely in depth here, but really what it is we're building this ecosystem so that we can deploy applications on top of our private network in an entirely air-gap fashion if needed. We can also are exploring how we might do that in some of a more hybrid scenario where we may also connect to some of our, we also have mobile edge compute, which is where we put instances of AWS in our service access points. And so we have those instances available as well in a really low latency. We have 19 offerings across the US. So we also may showcase how we can use those two together, right? So for us, we're in the space of wanting to get customer feedback from what we're building to make sure that when and if we take this to market, that it is really a product that the industry will use. We also continue to offer our private network deployment now, where we can actually bring out and pop up a bubble of connectivity and with our different bands. And sometimes that connectivity can go for long distances for smaller bandwidth use cases, and then with a smaller bubble we can do really high bandwidth use cases.
Great. Scott, we were delighted to be part of this, and as Haivision, we want to encourage those solutions that satisfy both our engineering curiosity, but also provide for a very elegant solution to real production problems out there. So we look forward for more things together, as well as with our broader partners and customers. Marcus, I think you're back on, so back to you.
Yeah, everybody, thank you very much. I would especially like to thank Scott for joining us today and walking us through this fantastic example of incredible innovation and technology. NAB was very exciting for us, as we were proud to be involved. And also, of course, thank you, Nikos. Just going to wrap quickly here because there were some very interesting takeaways going on. Before I do that, I'm just going to put up a poll because I would like people to please let us know if they would like us to get in touch with them. So take a moment to answer, but I'll just close this out because what we heard, the description from Nikos and Scott talking about this incredible workflow in which the content was coming in. Of course, it was not live, but as Scott mentioned, it may as well have been coming in off of decks into the Haivision Pro transmitters and the Mojo Pros across the private 5G network, and the enterprise AI, then on into the Stream Hub, which was relaying back by API after the key highlights were identified across to the pros to adjust the incoming bit rates as needed, make sure that you had the best quality on the shots that were the most important. And I think that it's such an interesting use case, and we see this as an amazing evolution from previous projects where we've had a lot of really interesting experience ourselves on the private 5G side of things. So thank you guys so much, and of course thank you also Mark and Gislain for walking us through what was going on there. There of course was a lot for everybody to hear about from NAB, including the launch of Falcon X2, our new transmitter, new features in the Makito, Stream Hub Go new offering, the very exciting upcoming UI change for SRT Gateway, the latest release of Mojo Pro, and more. Did I forget any of the new features? I think I got it all. Oh, Hub 360, of course, and not to forget Hub 360, which is constantly improving with amazing new features in our cloud platform for cloud master control. So yes, I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. We really appreciated you giving us your time, and we hope that we gave you a lot of very interesting information. So with that, I'd like to end this webinar and thank everybody. Have a great day, and thank you very much.